Topping today's news, the Prime Minister defends the government's green paper on corporate income tax, a police-involved shooting in the Fox Hill area, and vendors expressing concerns regarding their accommodations at the new cruise port. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jarino Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. When members returned to the halls of Parliament this morning, there were several bills read for the first time, but during the further communication segment of the proceedings, Prime Minister Philip Davis sought to lay some clarity to the government's recently released green paper on corporate income tax that was criticized by the official opposition that suggested the government consider a broader fiscal reform plan in relation to the nation's tax system. In this next report, we hear what the Prime Minister had to say about the green paper. The government released its green paper on corporate income tax on May 15th, and since then has extended the period for public and stakeholder consultation to August 21st, 2023. Since its release, the official opposition has been very critical of the green paper, with party leader Michael Pintard describing it as a half-step exercise and not the all-encompassing much-needed reform to the nation's tax regime. Well, Prime Minister Philip Davis, during a communication to House members this morning, sought to set a number of matters straight regarding the green paper. The first being that it is exactly that, a green paper and not a white paper. He explained the difference.
As is typical of green papers, the green paper on corporate income tax strategy is intended to stimulate discussion and solicit feedback from the public on what is a potentially far-reaching public policy issue under consideration by the government. That's what the green paper is about. It is intended to stimulate discussion and to get feedback from the public on what is a potentially far-reaching public policy issue that the government is considering. By design, it signals possible approaches and courses of action that the government may take in progressing towards the development of policy and legislation regarding the issue under consideration. While the green paper presents options on what a corporate income tax policy for the Bahamas might look like, it does not contain a commitment to any particular policy action.
The Prime Minister says the government aims to address these challenges in a manner that promotes fiscal resilience, economic growth, and development. He also explained that the green paper was comprised using widespread consultation.
Green paper is the result of a comprehensive exercise undertaken by the government with the assistance of the consultancy firm of Deloitte. It was also ably supported by a business advisory committee comprised of economic sector representatives and employed an assessment process that included interviews with key business leaders on potential options, risks, and challenges.
Prime Minister Davis went on to further ensure that on the way to producing a potential white paper on corporate income tax, the government will continue to be transparent, receiving input from the public and stakeholders. He shared why the government is incentivized to impose corporate income tax at this time.
As well documented in the green paper, there are two factors that drive this initiative on corporate income tax. One of which is the government's need to address the G7 initiative to tax the profits of multinationals with annual revenues in excess of euro 750 million, earned in every jurisdiction in which they do business. The Bahamas became a signatory to the OECD's Pillar 2 framework on July 1st, 2021. And together with some 350 countries, agreed to the implementation of a 15% minimum corporate income tax for the in-scope entities. So that is the basis, one of the pillars in which motivates the discussion that we are having on that and informs the Green Paper. The second motivation for exploring a corporate income tax is to address the government's goal of securing greater fairness and equity within the Bahamas' existing tax regime.
The Prime Minister says if it is decided to introduce corporate income tax, those companies that pay income tax will not be required to pay business license fees. The much-anticipated gender-based violence bill was tabled in the lower chamber this morning. Just a week ago, Social Services and Urban Development Minister Obi Wilshcombe told reporters that the bill would be tabled in about 2 weeks as the Attorney General had the complete final draft. This morning, the minister, laying the Protection Against Violence Bill 2023, says the Bahamas has taken deliberate, incremental steps to end gender-based violence through strengthened and responsive state and civil action.
Gender-based issues give rise to concerns in our society. Due to the high incidence of crime generally in the Bahamas involving violence, whether it be violence against men, women, children, or gang violence, it was also felt that the bill should not discriminate against anyone. The Protection Against Violence Bill 2023, therefore, generally provides for the protection of and support for victims of violence.
Minister Wilshcombe notes that clauses 10 through 14 of the bill establishes a Protection Against Violence Commission as well as the Protection Against Violence Secretariat. The overarching function of the commission will include strengthening involvement of multi-sectoral stakeholders in the public-private partnership to respond to violence with effective strategies and policies while providing care and support services to various organizations that help victims of violence.
Part 2 of the bill, Madam Speaker, seeks to set out the responsibility of the Commission to ensure international and regional obligations of the country. We are to ensure that they are complied with and enumerates the binding principles regarding human rights, and the Commission is required to adhere to it. Part 3 of the bill seeks to provide the framework for the administration of the Act. Specifically, the Minister has responsibility for A, develop and implement a national strategic plan. B, strengthen institution capacity in response to violence. 3, establish a foundation to raise funds for the sole use and benefit of the Commission in its functions. And D, implement sensitivity training programs for members of the police force and support service personnel, and generally raise awareness of the public on problems and remedies of violence.
Minister Wilshcombe says the government is asking for the public's feedback ahead of the debate on the bill that will be done through a series of town hall meetings across the country. The bill is anticipated to be debated in early July. Petroleum Retailers held a meeting today to discuss the way forward. This much coming from President of the Bahamas Petroleum Dealers Association, Raymond Jones, who says diesel will not be sold for the foreseeable future until the government addresses their profit margin concerns.
So the Bahamas Petroleum Retailers Association just had a meeting, just discussing what's going on in our industry and the constant battle we face with operating costs. And we are actually looking at different ways how we can actually rectify the challenge we have. And we're actually calling on the government to meet with us so we can finalize the discussion we've been having with them with regards to the proposals presented so we can come to an agreement. Well, all the fuel retailers are on board. I think the only were the Shell-owned sites that were still operating and selling fuel, which is fine. But all the independent operated sites were closed in support of the present position of fuel retailers in general.
The association has been pressing the government for months to raise their fuel margins to allow them to receive fair and sustainable profits to stay afloat. The question was posed whether or not there will be further disruptions in fuel service, as many buses, taxi drivers, delivery service, and contractors have been affected by the sudden halt in diesel sales. Mr. Jones gave this response.
We're not trying to do any action that's going to actually impair the public from moving around. But at this point, we have to get this price margin changed so we can carry on and run our businesses and operate profitably. That's the folk. Taxis have called and given their support, but we don't want to do anything that's going to affect them indefinitely to the point where they can't make money, because at the end of the day, we're all in this business to make some money. So we feel for them, and we're with them, but we ask the powers that be to let's get this resolved as soon as possible. We're ready, willing, and able to sit and have that discussion today.
We got a chance to speak with George Cartwright, proprietor of Esso Gas Station on East and Montrose Avenue, who shared the following comments.
We are all selling diesel. Apparently, you all don't know that, okay? It's a sad situation when you have stakeholders who don't care about their dealers. And when the government controls an item and the dealers come to them because it's a price-controlled item, right? And, I don't know if you could find another business in this country that would operate on a 5% gross in order to maintain their business on any one product. Our plight is that, we currently work at a fixed margin, and our percentages are so low that it's hard for us to maintain our business.
As for what is next, the Petroleum Association says it's a wait-and-see scenario. A police-involved shooting here in the capital leaves a 25-year-old in hospital in stable condition. The male of Meadows Drive was shot by police on Tuesday. Police say shortly after 7 p.m., officers from the Saturation Patrol Unit were on routine patrol in the Fox Hill area when they observed a heavily tinted red Honda Coupe traveling north along Ambrister Street, driving in a suspicious manner. The officers made attempts to stop the vehicle by shining its beacon lights and utilizing its foghorn. However, the driver refused to stop and sped off at a high rate of speed. This resulted in a police pursuit throughout the Fox Hill community. It further reported that while traveling east along Davis Street onto Tyre Lane, the driver began to roll down his window and was subsequently shot to the right arm. He was taken to the hospital via EMS personnel. An examination of the vehicle revealed that the license plate did not correlate with the vehicle discs. Investigations continue into that matter. And finally, in this segment, there is a dire need for small home repairs throughout the length and breadth of the Bahamas, according to Senator Kirkland Russell, who is the Deputy Director of Urban Renewal. He says with the 2023 hurricane season upon us, Urban Renewal's focus is now on roofing, but he notes that many homes on Grand Bahama and on Abaco are also in need of internal repairs following Hurricane Dorian.
Right now, let me just say this before I take my seat. Right now, we are focusing on roof repairs. And the reason for roof repairs is that we are trying to do as much repair as possible before we get into the heart of the hurricane season. We do understand, though, and that is why the program was changed from a small roof repair to small home repair, simply because during our assessment, we realized that flood inundation was a major player as far as the catastrophic effect of Hurricane Dorian on the homes both here in Grand Bahama as well as in Nassau, and in Abaco. And so we realize that persons need assistance not just with roof repairs, but also with interior repairs.
Senator Russell was speaking during the most recent Office of the Prime Minister press briefing held on Grand Bahama, where the government officially relaunched its small home repairs program with a pilot project to repair 42 homes on western Grand Bahama and parts of Abaco. In addition to the home repairs, Senator Russell says Urban Renewal will also tackle the removal of derelict vehicles and abandoned buildings on Grand Bahama and Abaco.
One of the things we want to do within the new budget, urban renewal is also responsible for the removal of derelict vehicles, the clearing of abandoned buildings and what's not. The beautiful Grand Bahama project has been doing a fantastic job with beautifying our communities, beautifying our streets. So, in order to really enhance that and get that program to go where it needs to go as it relates to transformation, because that is the whole intent of what we are doing, and that is the whole purpose of urban renewal, transformation of urban communities and bringing them up to a better standard. So one of the projects we intend to launch heavily within the next budget is the removal of derelict vehicles and the clearing of abandoned buildings.
The government is expected to introduce the new fiscal budget today, Wednesday, in the House of Assembly, and many ministries and departments will be anticipating what their new budget for 2023-2024 will look like and which projects and programs they will be able to fund over the next fiscal year. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.